Hello and welcome to Alex's Model Kits. This is a video talking about the kit I was working on the last time you saw me, which is the Airfix Spitfire, which I'm converting to the Supermarine Spitfire prototype. And also talking about the kit I'm working on at the moment, and probably talking about a couple of kits I plan to work on in the future. So bearing in mind that today is Christmas Eve, we kind of have a ghost from the past, a ghost from the present and a ghost from the future. So there we are, a little bit of a themed video for you all. Okay, so let's have a look at what I've done with the Spitfire, which is now finished. All that remained to do on this kit was to add the canopy and then the decals. The canopy was painted before being added to the aircraft and fixed in place with a small amount of PVA glue. Then it was time to add the decals. The decals came from Hannon's and are extra decals number X72075. In my view, it's the decals that make this kit work and tie together all the changes made to produce this version of the prototype Spitfire. But the decals need a bit of attention. The serial numbers on the aircraft come in two parts. The black lettering has a white surround. So the white surround goes on first, and then once dry the black lettering is applied over the top. The roundels are just the same, all requiring two decals to make the finished item. Once the decals were applied, they were left to dry and then sealed with a thin satin varnish. So that was it for the Spitfire. That was finished a couple of months ago, I suppose, and I was generally pretty happy with it. I quite liked what I was doing, quite pleased with the result. I liked the colour scheme. The prototype comes in sort of various colour schemes. There's a sort of a bare metal finish that the prototype occasionally had. There is also a scheme where there's an element of green towards the back. I think there's bare metal at the cowling, and then it has sort of a greenish paint over the fuselage. And then there's the sky blue scheme that I've gone for, which for me is kind of the sort of the archetypal colour for that prototype aircraft. In my view, it's a really nice looking scheme, and I was very pleased with it. I was pleased with the kit. I was pleased with what I managed to do with it. I liked the scratch building that I managed to get onto it. I was quite happy with that. And the decals, as I said in the video, I think the decals are what makes the kit work. It what brings it to life. I think without the decals, it just becomes a slightly odd, just an oddity. It's not quite the Spitfire we expect. But I think with the decals in place, it puts everything in context and people can see that this is the prototype that we're looking at. So I wouldn't have tried that kit without having some decals to apply to it. And the Hannon's decals are very nice. They worked very well, and I was very pleased with them. They went on pretty easily. The only thing I'd say is that the very, very last serial number on the tailplane, where it comes in two parts, you have the white background and then the black lettering to go over the top. The very last serial number, I applied the black lettering over the top, and I generally use cocktail sticks like this to just position the decals in place, and the last serial number wrapped itself around the cocktail stick and then proceeded to tie itself into a knot, and it just became unusable. And I was faced with the choice of just leaving it and just having just the white lettering and no black stuff, or getting a whole set of decals more just for one letter, and I couldn't leave it. It just stood out like a sore thumb to me. So I had to buy a second set and just take the one serial number and apply that onto the kit. But I'm pleased to have. It does look nice, and it's just there. In fact, that's the finished kit just up there for me, and I'm very happy with it. The other problem I had with it, the very, very last step, was to just apply a satin varnish over the top, and I use, generally speaking, I use these spray cans of varnish. I have used in the past, I have used the jars, so we have various, yeah, here we go, matte varnish, satin varnish. I have used these in the past, and you can see, I've got a clear around here somewhere. No, oh, is that a gloss? Yeah, there we go, there's a gloss. So gloss varnish, you can see, is clear all the way through. The satin varnish is clear at the top, the bottom is quite cloudy, and then the matte varnish is clear at the top, and I can see, it's harder for you to see it, but I can see that the cloudy part starts here, and so my guess is that probably all these varnishes start out as a gloss varnish, and then they have an additive added to change the consistency and add that satin or matte finish. And I use this on a small vehicle. The satin varnish I used on the small vehicle, which is just up here actually. This is a 1/72 scale Bedford NWD, and I was going to, in fact I think I used a matte varnish on this. I used a matte varnish on the wood because the back part of the lorry is made of wood, and the plan was to use a satin varnish where you'd have a bit more of a sheen for the front part, which is made of metal. And I applied the matte varnish first to the wood, and it dried incredibly cloudy and white. Now a lot of people will say, well, I haven't mixed that properly, but I really did properly shake it around. Properly shake it around and really try to get it mixed as possible. And if I hadn't have mixed it, I'd have been taking varnish from the top of the jar, which would have been the clear stuff and not the cloudy stuff at the bottom. So I'm quite comfortable with saying that I mixed this properly, but for some reason it didn't dry at all well. So that put me off a little bit on using the varnishes from the jar, and so I started using varnishes from the spray cans instead, on the basis that you'll get a nice even application of varnish. And on this Spitfire up here, what happened when I applied the satin varnish here was that for some reason it went blotchy. It didn't layer in an even way. It came out really blotchy, and whilst you can't really see it, I doubt if you'll see it from this video, and you can't really easily see it in photographs, and from a distance, you know, even there it looks fine actually, but when you get close and have a look and just catch the wings in the light, you can really see it's quite a blotchy, grubby finish, and it really annoyed me. This had looked so nice, I was so pleased with this, and then that very last stage for the kit, just to seal it and finish it with varnish, just then kind of ruined it. It was a really disappointing moment, and I was a bit cheesed off about that. But there we are. Life goes on. We live and learn. I don't quite know what I've learned from that, other than maybe I should be testing every time I spray from a can. I should maybe test on a bit of cardboard or something first and make sure that the spray is behaving as I expect it to. But there we are. So that's a Spitfire. That's Spitfire done, and it's time to move on to the next thing. I started the next aircraft almost straight away, and I started doing some video for this to show you in this video, and I realised I haven't really got as many photographs as I thought I had, and I don't quite know why. I think possibly I started to get into it and just got into doing it rather than photographing the stages I was doing. So the aircraft I'm doing is probably easiest to show you here actually. This is an Armstrong Whitworth Whitley, a very early Second World War British bomber. A nice kit, awful aircraft, but a nice kit, and probably best thing to do is to show you what I've done with it so far. This Airfix kit was first released in 2015 and is one of several new toolings from Airfix which have received very positive reviews. The kit is well packaged, filling the box it comes in. As with all Airfix kits, all the sprues come in a single bag. The kit comes in 4 sprues plus 1 clear sprue. The instructions are typical Airfix instructions, coming in an A4 booklet with everything being nice and clear to see. As with most of Airfix's new toolkits, this one is very detailed and crisply moulded in familiar Airfix grey. However, there are some ejector marks that need to be filled and cleaned up on various parts of the kit. The construction of this kit is fairly modular. The main aircraft breaks down into 3 main sections: the cockpit, the wings and centre fuselage, and the rear fuselage and tail. Each area is highly detailed. The cockpit is a busy space with a pilot seat in place here, and the space behind the pilot will soon be filled with the navigator's desk and seat. And beyond the navigator, behind the bulkhead, will sit the seat and desk for the radio operator and his equipment. The wing section is also very detailed, with the 2 main wing spars clear to see during construction and giving a good idea of how the aircraft was built at the time. Walkways between the wing spars are provided, and underneath the walkways is a nicely detailed bomb bay. The rear fuselage is also provided with a walkway to the very end of the aircraft, which will never be seen once the kit is constructed, but is a nice insight into how aircraft of this age were made and what crews had to contend with. The kit fits together well, but for some reason 2 holes for the DF loop aerial were missing. There are no clues to where these holes might be, so after some careful study of the instructions, it seemed that the loop aerial was fitted next to the starboard window. I dipped the loop aerial into a small dab of yellow paint, so the ends of the locating pins had a small amount of paint on them. Then touched the locating pins onto the fuselage. This provided me with 2 markers to drill into the fuselage to create the holes I needed. With previous kits, I have often painted most of the kit before constructing it. I do this for 2 reasons. It means that for many of the windows of the aircraft, I'll get a clean paint job without having to mask the area. Plus, I get an excellent dividing line between the upper and lower surfaces of the wings and tailplanes, which I never seem to get when masking the kit. However, on this new tool kit, I think this may not have been the best approach, as the kit fits together very well, but with tighter tolerances than older kits that I've done previously. So there we are, that's what we have so far with the Whitley. I don't seem to have as many photographs of that kit during the build as I thought I'd had. I think I probably focused so much on building the separate stages, and then when they suddenly came together, I just kind of got into the build and just started working on the build rather than photographing it. So sorry, there aren't as many photographs as there should be. But this is progress so far. All that remains really is just to do the turrets and the canopy and the propellers, and then really at that point I can then varnish the kit, add the decals, and then that last varnish over the top. I'm using, rarely for me, I'm using a set of masks, which I probably will start using more and more often now. I think with the older kits, masking tape was okay, but for the newer ones, they are quite fine, and there's quite a lot of window panels on this kit, and masking them would be, with masking tape, would be quite a laborious process. I think most model makers probably dislike the masking aspect more than any other aspect, and I'm no different to that. I really don't enjoy the masking process, so the masking sets are becoming quite useful now for me. So that's progress so far. I will do a final update on this kit when it's finished, and hopefully that will be, I would like to think, before the new year. I've got a week off now. Today's Christmas Eve, and I have a week off, in fact just over a week off from work, so I'd like to think that I have some time on my hands to work on this kit. So that's what I've done so far with the Spitfire, and it's what I'm doing so far with the current build, which is the Whitley, and after that build, once that's completed, I have a couple of kits lined up for a group build that I'm going to take part in. The group build is called All at Sea. It's been run by a chap called Ian Poulton, who runs a YouTube channel called UK Scale Modeler. Ian's done several group builds in the past. They're always really well attended. I think Ian is a bit of a catalyst for the social aspect of model making. He seems to get more people to take part in the group builds that I've seen him run than I think most people get in the group builds that they run. I don't know why. I think he's obviously a very engaging chap. He and I get on very well anyway, so that's always nice, but I think he just seems to have that sort of engaging personality that encourages other model makers to get involved, and I think that they really enjoy taking part in his group builds. So I would encourage you, if you're not already doing that group build, then I would encourage you to have a go. It's started on the 1st of December. It finishes on the 31st of March. So there's a bit of time left. There's certainly quite a lot of time left for most model makers. For me, I'm probably pushing it already, knowing how long I take to get anything done. But I have two plans for that build. The first is this kit here, which will be, I'm hoping, fairly simple. It's an older build from Airfix, so it's not going to be highly detailed. 1/48 scale. And I'm not going to do anything special with it. I'm just going to build it straight out of the box. So I'm hoping I can get that done fairly quickly. And the other build I'm going to do is actually, this arrived a couple of days ago. This is not a traditional kit, but this is more to do with wargaming and wargaming miniatures. But I'm hoping it will qualify. I haven't spoken to Ian about it yet, but I'm hoping it will qualify because there is very much a kit element. This here is the hull. This is a sail set. Down here the rat lines. This is the base, and somewhere in here there are some pennants as well. So there is painting and construction needed, and I think that qualifies. And this is a 1/12,000 scale sailing ship, Napoleonic sailing ship. It's a 74 gun, British 74 gun, third rate ship of the line. And with that, I also bought this booklet here. I used to do a lot of this about 30 years ago. I used to do an awful lot of this and was okay. I spent a lot of time studying and researching how those ships would be painted and how they would look, but I haven't done this for 30 years. There's quite a lot I've forgotten, and so I thought a booklet on how best to paint them and also how best to rig them, because I rarely rig them with any major detail, was probably worth getting as well. So those are the two entries I plan to have for the group build to take us into 31st of March. Okay, well I think that's probably it for the moment. As I said, it's the 24th of December, it's Christmas Eve, so really I think the last thing for me to do is to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and thank you for watching, and I will see you again very soon. Okay, Merry Christmas and goodbye.